Okay, just a little heads up with the handout this morning. I did put all of the verses in that, so we won't have to fumble through. I shouldn't say fumble through. So we won't have to flip through our pages to find the references, so I tried to put them all in there. I may have missed a few along the way, but I think I got them all. So if you just want to look at the handout, that's why it's 2 pages this morning. A little more. So let's begin over in Proverbs 12, though, verse 18, and I think it is the first one in your handout, so it will be there. Someone like to read that for us as we begin? So Proverbs 12, verse 18. Okay, Brother Krinky? Okay, great. And we did pray for our time, so let me just jump right in here maybe, if I can get this to work. I guess I can't. The light is on, but it's not working. Can you is that thing up there, Chris, the remote up on usually it's up on the counter part? Okay. Okay, there we go. Okay, so being wise with your words. So what did God use when he wanted to reveal himself to humanity? I don't know if I put those verses in there or not. I don't think I did. But what did he use when he wanted to? I'll give you a hint here. 2 verses there. 2 Timothy 3:16. All scripture is given by inspiration of God. And then John 1:14. The word was made flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory. It's Christ's glory, really God's glory, the glory of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. So based on those, how did God reveal himself to us? Okay, through his words. Good. So really God uses his word, whether written word or living word, to communicate himself, and we do the same. We communicate ourselves by what we say. We show who we are. And then so to help us communicate, now it's too sensitive. Help us communicate in a way that honors God. Note what Proverbs says about our words and our speech. And so I think that's really important for us to see and understand right up front that we are showing ourselves by what we say, whether positive or negative. So right into the outline here, the folly of inappropriate words and then words spoken to people. So really the outline will be looking at a negative and positive of words spoken to people and then words spoken about people, and both on the inappropriate words and then the appropriate words to speak to people and about people. So that'll be the focus as we go through this. So on the first thing, what vivid picture does first part of 12:18 give about the negative impact words can have? What does it tell us? Okay, it kills. And what's the words that's used there? Yeah, the piercings of a sword. And what is interesting, just in the word speaketh there, has aspect of speaking rashly or to blurt out. It's like there's lots there, and so you speak out. In Psalm 106, verse 33, speaking about Moses, when the people, it says, and the word provoked is in the verse, and when the people provoked him, I think it says they, that he spake unadvisedly, and that's our word speaketh here. He spake unadvisedly with his lips. And so it's just, you're not thinking, Jesus said every idle word that men shall speak, they'll be held accountable in the day of judgment. So what are some other ways? Don gave us one right at the start about words like, how are words like a piercing sword? Okay, so how are our words? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, that's right. It's dividing the soul, asunder of soul and spirit. I think it's the next verse that goes into about we must give an account. So if we look at it not as God's word, but as our words and the piercing of a sword, it says, he that speaketh, more or less speaketh rashly, is like the piercings of a sword. So piercings of a sword. What is God trying to tell us there? Yeah, it hurts. Okay? I've never been pierced by a sword, but I'd rather not be. So, well, that's true. There you go. So I don't think he's saying that words are going to kill you, but they can sure hurt a lot. Okay, I wrote painful. I said it cuts deep. Let me ask you, if you get cut deep, what do you get for a long time? Scars. Yeah, pains. So, and I think that's, so I put the wound can leave scars. It can hinder, if you got hit in the right place. Anybody have any old sports, work related, or any kind of else injuries that you right now, you did it 40 years ago or 20 years ago or even 10 years ago, and you still have some hindrances in your life, okay? That's like the piercing of a sword. Words can have an effect upon a person that lasts longer than the moment. And I think all of that's part of what God's trying to communicate to us here. So remember, our words are like negative words when we speak out rashly and bluntly and blurt out like without really thinking. So the second part of the verse, what can proper words do and what kind of person uses them? So same verse, 12:18. So the latter part, what do proper words do? Yeah, bring health. And maybe you could even say that they help after the piercing of a sword. There's health there. There's healing. There's something there. And who speaks those kind of words? The wise person. Okay, so there is a contrast between the wise person who doesn't blurt out, doesn't just speak unadvisedly. So there is a contrast in even the speaking itself with that. Okay, we'll continue on. So in 15:4, let's go ahead and read that verse. So it's right there on our text. Someone read that for us. Don, would you read that?
Proverbs 15:4. The wholesome tongue is the tree of life. The perverseness therein is a breach in the spirit.
Okay, so in 15:4, what is a wholesome tongue like? A tree of life. Okay, so it grows life. It's productive. It's helpful. It's all of those kind of things. And we could speak in the spiritual realm as far as the gospel. It brings life. If someone responds to it. So it's interesting. The word wholesome. It's the same word that's found back in 12:18 for healing. Where the tongue of the wise brings health. I should put health there. Sorry, but yeah, it's the same. So the wholesome has an aspect of a healing aspect. Oops. So what does a perverseness of tongue bring in that verse, 15:4? Okay, what does that mean? Well, I wrote down up here, breach has aspect of something's fractured, something's broken open to crush. You think of a gate being breached, okay, and so it brings a break in the spirit. So here's a question for us just to ask: what are some emotions or actions that might come because of a broken spirit? Okay, depression. Okay. Sadness, good. Anger. Boy, you follow. Here, did you see my list? Anything else? I think those are good. I along with anger, I put retaliation, and sometimes even isolation. You just don't want to be around people. You don't want to. That would go with the discouragement, I guess you could say. So, remember, your words can really, really impact people, and that as it says, to a broken spirit there. Excuse me, I'm flipping over there. So perverseness therein, when it's twisted, it's distorted, it can break the spirit. So we have to really be careful with that. What does 17:22 say about a broken spirit? Someone read that one? 17:22. It's right there in the notes. Why don't you read the whole thing for us?
Proverbs 17:22. A merry heart doeth good like a medicine, but a broken spirit drieth the bones.
Okay. So what do you think he means by drieth the bones?
Take your happiness right out of your heart.
Okay. So just takes your happiness away. Anything else? Drieth the bones. Doesn't sound very, very good anyway. Okay, so like death. So I put sort of between those two, I put you lose your vitality. It's interesting that what is made in your bones? Your blood, yeah, in your marrow. Is your. I'm sorry. Right, and so when you got trouble in your bones, then there's a whole lot of things that go with that, and I don't think it's necessarily talking about a medical way, but I just put you lose your vitality mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I mean, all of it's there. So be careful about breaking anybody's spirit. There is a place for correction as far as for children, but you want to keep their spirit. There's a sense of brokenness, but still alive. Their willingness to live. Continue on. So word spoken about people. So 16:28. Someone like to read this one for us. 16:28. There in the notes. Okay, Brother Crinky. Okay. So what? I forgot. What kind of person creates strife? A froward. Remember, it's not forward. It's froward. Okay. And I think I wrote a note up here. I can't remember. No, I didn't. But a froward means twisted or perverse. You can think about it. He's not thinking right according to God's truth. Correct. Toward. Yeah, so instead of going toward God, you're going away from God in a sense. So he creates strife. Now, what action is used to do this? Okay, in that second part of the verse. What action does he use to use his twisted words? Yeah, he whispers. And here's what's really interesting. You may want to make a note. It's found 4 times in Proverbs, and the other 3 times it's translated talebearer. In fact, when I put these notes together, I spelled talebearer wrong. I put T-A-I-L, bearer. And my wife said, honey, because she does it for the ladies, and so I put the main part, and then she adds her own. And then she says, honey, you put that you spelled tail wrong. And I said, well, I was talking about raccoon hunters. Isn't that what Proverbs is speaking about? She said, that's not right. So anyhow, talebearer. So a whisperer. So I put, what does that tell us about the characteristic of the whisperer? Yeah, he has. Not him personally, but yeah, he's got a tale to share. And so I just think I put down he's spreading tales. What is a tale? T-A-L-A. Or T-A-L-E, I'm sorry. Yeah, a story. And what kind of story is it? Yeah, usually a false, made-up story. I mean, it could be true, and we'll see that a little bit later. So I was... go ahead, I'm sorry.
Exaggerated the truth.
Yeah, exaggerate or tilt it. Slander, I always think of that, just tilt it a little bit. So it's... thinking back to the idea of a froward man, okay, and not really in relationship to the Lord per se, though it is, but think about it in telling the story. He twists it, he distorts it, so it's not really the truth, no matter how much he wants to say it. So I just put the facts are distorted in his own favor, and then thinking about that, this action is so powerful. What can it do? What does that verse tell us? It creates strife to what extent? What does that verse tell us? Yeah, it can separate chief friends. That's what it says. So you get someone, here's 3 people. 2 people are really, really close, and you get a third person there, and he can start telling tales. And in telling tales, he can separate those people that have been friends for 20 years. Because of something he says. Now, they can separate themselves. They should be able to talk. But the very fact that Proverbs is getting that across, that, man, this is serious stuff. You remember, I was just thinking, it's not in the notes there, but Proverbs 6, where is it, around 13? 6 things the Lord hates, these are 7 are an abomination to him. He that soweth discord among brethren. God said that's an abomination. If you start telling tales, whispering so that, someone is separated, God says, that's really bad. Just added to that, in 17:9, what separateth friends there in 17:9? Is that in our, did I put that one in there? Yes, I did. Do you want to just read it for us, Brother Arden?
He that covereth the transgression seeketh love, but he that repeateth the matter separateth very friends.
Okay, so there is what? What's the key that separates friends there? Yeah, gossip. Okay. Yeah, he's it's interesting there in the way that's phrased. He that covereth a transgression seeketh love. Okay, so remember when you're reading Proverbs, sometimes look at the other part of it. It sometimes helps you to add a little more to the second part. So thinking of the first part, let me ask you this. The transgression that is mentioned in the first half, 17:9a, is that true or false? In other words, did he really transgress or did he not transgress? Well, but think about what it says. He that covereth, yes, he did. And someone said, in love, I'm not, that's not going to affect my relationship with him. So the second part of the aspect of repeating the matter, what is it that's being repeated? Yeah, what he did. So sometimes it may be, well, I'm just telling the truth. I'm just being honest. But did they need to know? Does this other person need to know what really happened? Now, there are times where you obviously, if someone asks you for an honest evaluation of a friend, a work reference, there may be some things that aren't so flattering about your friend that you should probably tell. Especially, let's say, this is a bad scenario, but if there was any molestation and this person's trying to work with kids, you have to say something. You don't have to spill the whole beans, but you better say something because you're setting that person up for trial and you're setting this company up, all that kind of stuff. So, that's the worst case scenario, but there are times where, hey, they don't need to know. But you're not hiding truth, you're not being deceptive. But we've all had friends that we've overlooked some things. So I'd say he repeats a rumor or maybe a failure that does not need to be known by others. Okay? I think it's forgiving because it says it uses the word love there. What was it again? Seeketh love. I don't think that. I guess you could look at it in a bad sense. I'm just seeking their favor. But I think it's genuine love that says, hey, I'm not going to. I forgot your question now. My thought is forgiveness. Yeah. Yes, very good. Yeah, that's excellent. That's a good thought. Okay. Well, let's move forward in this. So, Brother Arden already mentioned it, but what we say, this person is spreading. Yeah, gossip is what I was thinking, but spreading rumors is true. So I just, we look at it. I don't think the New Testament, the King James, I don't think it uses the word gossip, does it? I can't think of anywhere where it uses that term itself, but that's obviously so over to 26:20. What dies out when a talebearer is gone? Someone like to read those 3 verses there because we'll look at all 3 of them. 26:20 through 22. Okay, Brother Don.
Proverbs 26:20 through 22. Where no wood is, there the fire goeth out. So where there is no talebearer, the strife ceases. As coals are to burning coals, and wood to fire, so is a contentious man to kindle strife. The words of a talebearer are as wounds, and they go down into the innermost parts of the belly.
Okay, so first question, what dies out when a talebearer is gone?
Strife.
Yeah, strife, okay? So that seems to be the idea of the fire. There is the strife, the fighting. What is this same person called in the next verse, in verse 21? What's he referred to? This guy who's stirring up strife, this talebearer. He's called something else in verse 21. Yeah, contentious. In fact, that's I don't think I wrote it. I think it's just in my notes. Yeah, the word contentious is the same word where we get the word strife in verse 20. It's the same Hebrew base word. In fact, it may be the exact same word. I can't recall right offhand, but yeah, same one. So I was thinking about this in verse 20, where it says the one who causes strife. Let me see. I'm sorry. Oh yes. Okay. So thinking about this guy who causes strife, who is it again? The what? Well, no, back in verse 20, I'm sorry. A talebearer. So a talebearer, he's quiet. As I said, he's whispering. He's not an in-your-face, angry, strife-making, argumentative bully. Hey, let me tell you about so-and-so. Hey, did you hear about this? Did you know about that? And God says that guy is contentious. He's a strife creator. He's getting in there and starting fights. And I thought, wow, that is really. So I just put a whisperer is not an in-your-face anger, but it can be just as destructive. Because think about the opposite of strife. What is he ruining? What's the opposite of strife? Content. But you're thinking of more than one person. Peace, harmony, unity. And so I just, wow, he's destructive to harmony and unity as a boxer. Or what they say, a bull in a china shop. Just destruction everywhere. Okay. So can you think of a time when you did not respond in the like manner? In other words, a talebearer or a contentious person, and the fire of strife went out? Anybody have any time that you remember that you can share when maybe someone was, it could be the soft answer turneth away wrath. That could be part of it. But where there was either a tale being told or an argument being made, and you responded in a way that pleased God, and it seemed to die out. Yes, sir.
I'm hearkening back to when my son was young, and he came to me and said that this young man up the street did something, I can't even remember what, and I got angry, I have to admit, so I went up there, and then when I found out, my son had said to this man, guess who got beat up? Anyhow, I'd like to say something, and maybe this will offend people, and it offends me when I think about it. But we've got to be careful as Christians about what we share,
Yes.
because oftentimes I hear about something that's been shared, and it sounds an awful lot like gossip. And then oftentimes we speak before we know.
Yeah.
And you see stories about this, you hear stories where you only get part of a situation, like what you see, or what somebody told you. And there's most often very much more to it, and totally different than what you have related to someone.
Right. And that, but it's interesting.
And just
Yeah.
sharing, even
Yeah.
for prayer.
Right. Yeah. So that's obviously a very, very careful thing. And love tries to cover a transgression, and I think that's a genuine thing that God does with us. So yeah, I think we have to be careful. So the idea with this is you didn't put any wood on the fire. Did your words create? Allow the fire to keep burning, keep stirring. And I think that's very important based on what it says there. So strife, I think this is really, if you're going to put an arrow or a star by this, a thought in this lesson, strife is not just the moment of argument. And I think this is really important, but the division that was before and remains after. I think that is really, really, the argument, it didn't just, poof. There was some things brewing there. Where did that go? The whisper, the shadow knows. I think there's something here that we need to see that's bigger than just, two people having an argument. There's a strife created, and that's what, the New Testament church, boy, that is hit over and over and over again about endeavoring to keep the unity of the Spirit and the bond of peace. Understand, if someone's a whisperer telling things they ought not to tell, that is not being directed by the Spirit of God. Just put it down. Endeavoring to keep, Ephesians 4:3, I think it is, endeavoring to keep the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. And boy, that is so important. Okay, anything else to add to that? Okay, let's continue on here in this same verse. So thinking of these three verses, I want to put a little something together. So verse 20 is gossips keep the fire of strife burning, and that's where it says that the fire goes out if they're gone. So if they're still there, they keep it burning. But verse 20, they get the fire of strife started. Where do you think I get that from, verse 20 there of chapter, was it 26 or 16? I can't remember now. So verse 21, why would I say that the talebearer or the whisperer is the one who starts this problem? It's a word that's mentioned in verse 21. If you've ever been camping, you know the word. Well, that would be one thing. And there's another one there, though it's not a verb. It's in the, no, I guess it is a verb. Kindle. To kindle strife. So the first one is like, okay, here's how it keeps going. So don't keep it going. Don't be a gossip. But then also, it is the gossip, that contentious person, they get it started. So I think the next verse really speaks, and I'll just put it this: gossips influence others there in verse 22. The words of a talebearer are as wounds, and they go down into the innermost part of the belly. Now, I did a little word study, and they're the exact same, in 18:18, it's the exact same verse. It's almost repeated, and the Holy Spirit wanted to really get this down. But so I did a little word study, and I wanted to share it with you. The word wounds, okay, is found in Hebrew 2 times, okay? And it's only found in this verse 22, and then verse 18:8. So it's the same Hebrew word, and it's the only place they're found there. And the people that are study words, you could say, the linguists of that day say that's the basic meaning, to gulp down. Okay, and so just thinking of that, so to swallow fully, to eat quickly or completely, that's the concept. So I want us to think about that word and those wounds, and how that concept of gulping down, keeping it down really quick. And so 2 aspects dawned on me is for the person who's talked about. Gossip is like deep wounds that ruin a reputation and a life, okay? So that sort of goes with the piercings of the sword back in 12:18. So very, very similar concept. I even thought about, maybe eat some rotten food and it goes all the way down and then it comes all the way up, But anyway, that's a whole nother story. But then the other part is think about this word in the relationship to the person talked to. Gossip is like gulping down a tasty treat that influences and impacts you. So it's not a wound to you in the sense, but you're gulping it down. Wow, wow, yeah. Really? Did they do that? They didn't say that, did they? They did. And I thought both of those fit really well. So be aware of your heart. Be aware of what you like. Because what you're doing, you're advancing what? In these verses 26 through 26:20 through 22. What are you advancing when you listen to gossip? Gossip creates what? Back up here. What does it create? Yeah, it creates strife and it keeps the strife going. So if you're listening to it, what are you doing? You're keeping what going? Yeah, the fire. You're keeping the strife. We think, well, no, I'm not gossiping. I'm not saying, but you're listening. And I just put down a little note in my thing. You are part of the problem. If you like to listen to the bad things about other people. And so there's a balance in that as a pastor or maybe as a deacon, that someone, trying to help someone, you need to know what's happening. It's hard to help someone if you don't know what the truth is. But I said you can stop a talebearer by not listening to the tale. So let me ask you this, and this isn't in the notes anywhere, but I may have put the question. No, I don't think I did. So how do you do that? Someone comes up to you and says, let me tell you, I want to tell you about something. And I'm not supposed to say it, but I'll just tell you. I've told I wasn't supposed to tell anybody, so I'm just telling you. So don't tell anyone else, please. So how do you stop that? Okay, so you just point blank. No, I don't want to hear it. Okay, anything else that you might say, might do? So you can stop the tale before it's...
Why are you telling me this?
Yeah, I think that's a really good.
Because I'm interested in why people are doing what they're doing. So what's lacking in this person that is causing them to be involved in this?
Yeah,
There's something wrong. There's something going on there.
right.
So
Like someone once said, I think this is very similar to what you're saying. Are you part of the problem or the solution? Are you either one of those? Well, no, I just heard this. You just heard it. Heard it from who? Well, I just heard it from the little bird. Whatever. Well, let's go get a shotgun and take out that bird. No, just joking. Okay. But yeah, there's somewhere we've got to stop it. I just won't tell anybody. Well, I'll tell one person. So it goes on and on. So yeah, we have to really be careful with that. Okay. So that really, when I was looking at that, it was very interesting to me that obviously it could apply to both sides of the gossip issue, both of telling it, how you can hurt someone, and hearing it, how you can hurt someone. I think both of those. And by the way, let me ask you this. Has this ever happened to you, or ever you've seen it happen? Let's say this person, maybe yourself, this person gets, they hear something about someone, and because they've heard it, they start acting differently toward the person they just heard something about. All the time. And it may not be true, but it just wounded you because you listened to the gossip and it affected your relationship with this other person. And it could even affect, just the other day, I was a church situation someone called me about, and so I was talking to him, and I knew some things on the other side of an issue, and they said, well, this happened, and I knew it hadn't, but at the moment I couldn't really divulge that I knew that was false, but because someone had told them about this person, they said, it really makes me angry that they did that. Well, it wasn't totally true, and yet I wasn't able to divulge the whole thing, and so I just said, well, you need to make sure you act properly and make sure you get all the facts, and but yeah, it was just sad, and it affected them. They got wounded, and they were listening. So anyway, let's go on. Okay, so on the other side, the fruit of appropriate words. Okay, words spoken to people. Okay, and so we'll look at three different ways of how our words ought to be taken. So 15:2, someone read that. In fact, I'll read that one. It says, "The tongue of the wise useth knowledge aright, but the mouth of fools poureth out foolishness." So a question here, or just a note, the useth aright is very interesting. It means to deal well with or to make glad at times. I'll give you a couple examples. It's used a lot, okay? But God said to Jacob, I will deal well with thee. He said, go back to your country and I will deal well with thee. And then in Micah 5:2, I thought this was, God questions his people, do not my words do good to them that walk uprightly? And that do good is this word useth aright. So thinking through that, let me see, I was going to add something else. Thinking about that, useth aright, what would that tell you about how the wise uses information that came to them? Okay, they're truthful, but thinking about this. So how does he use, thinking especially this, deal well with? He uses the information to deal well with others. I just put it down that the information that the wise knows is used to benefit or help others. So if you hear of something derogatory, let me ask you this. What should our heart be if we're walking with Christ, okay? So I'm not going to throw out the carnality, throw out, those times we're not where we should be spiritually. But if we're really walking with Christ and we're like Jesus and we hear something bad about someone else, what should our heart be? Pray for them. How can I fix this? Can I do something that'll be helpful, that'll get them through this, that'll get them out of this, or whatever it happens to be. And so that's the wise person. He uses the knowledge aright. What's the right way to use this knowledge, this information? Right. So we'll take it that it is true. Yeah, just for the sake of our illustration. So he uses that knowledge in the right way. Okay. Let me see. I had another question there. And I just put, that right way could be, if you saw a crime and you need to testify, you tell the truth, obviously. And so that comes back to what you were saying. Find out if it is true and if it is. So this shows that at times, thinking of the latter part of the rest of the verse, but the mouth of fools poureth out foolishness. Just thinking of the tongue of the wise, okay, he's going to use his knowledge aright. He's going to speak something that's going to be helpful in that situation. But at the fool, so I thought at times the fool's words are not just worthless, okay, they're not just filled with folly, but they can be painful. He can be telling tales about other people. Again, that's passing it on. We've already looked at that. But let me go on. So how might God use your edifying words? From Ephesians 4:29. Let me just read it and then think about that. How might God use your edifying words? Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, there it is, that it may minister grace unto the hearers. So how might God use your edifying words? What does it say? It's an amazing statement, by the way. Minister grace to those who hear you. Now, I think it's probably primary speaking of giving them words of truth in the sense of, the Bible. But I think he's saying, hey, boy, understand if you're focused, hey, I want to help this person. I want to edify means to build up. I want to help them in some way, shape, or form. And God says, if that's your motivation, that's your desire, and you're speaking those right words, that which is good to the use of edifying, for the purpose of edifying, he says, sometimes I will. So while you're speaking to them, they're earthly, person to person, they're human to human, and God says, while they're listening, I'm going to minister grace to them. That's something you can't do. But God says, I'll do it because of what you're doing. And that to me is just, wow, okay? So words spoken to people can be really, really important. You just never know. Okay, and then the next thing is make it encouraging. Someone like to read 15:30 for us? And there are some handouts in the middle there if you guys want to look at. All the verses are on those for those who came in a little bit late. Okay, Brother Krinky. Okay, I don't remember. Oops. What effect can a pleasant countenance have on others? What does it tell us here? Yeah. Yeah, that's really good to know during COVID, wherever our smiles are always covered up. I guess you can learn to read eyes a little bit better. But you never know how God will use a cheerful smile, a cheerful countenance, and to say something nice about other people. And what can happen when the facts are what you are hoping for? That's the last part of the verse there. And a good report. Okay, speaking of, I was hoping this would happen, and it did. What does it do? It says it makes what? Your bones fat. Okay, I'm not sure how that works, but so again, we're not talking about getting fat physically. And I just put, because we don't have a lot of time, but think of the last time you heard good news, received a compliment, had someone's cheerful face encourage you. Just think about that. Anybody have that happen to you sometime in life? No? No one's ever given you an encouraging word? You know, I still remember, I've shared this before, but one time, you know, it was I don't remember even what it was, why I was somewhat discouraged. And all of a sudden I got a text from somebody who had never texted me before, and it said, you know, Pastor Hicks, I just wanted you to know, da, 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 you know, and it was about 4 or 5 lines worth, and I know why it came. It came because the Spirit of God was saying, hey, you need to get out of this, you know, this hole, you know, and I'm going to use someone's words to minister grace to you. And so you just never know. And so that's a really neat verse. So the light of the eyes encourage the heart, and a good report maketh the bones fat. So we need to copy that along the way. Some other thoughts about encouraging. When you see someone under a burden, what do you need to do in 12:25? Heaviness in the heart of man maketh it stoop, but a good word maketh it glad. So what should you do if you see someone under a burden? Yeah, give them a good word, okay? Encourage them, lift the burden in some way. In light of that, while trying to help, the right content needs to be coupled with what? From Proverbs 15:23. A man hath joy by the answer of his mouth, and a word spoken in due season. How good is it? So what does it need? You get the right words with the right second half of that verse, really. A word spoken in due season. So the right time. So the right content or the right time, sometimes that takes a little bit wisdom along the way. But he says, hey, this is very special. So what are the right words at the right time like? 25:11. Don, would you read 25:11 and 12 for us?
Proverbs 25:11 and 12. A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold and pictures of silver. As an earring of gold and an ornament of fine gold, so is a wise reprover upon an obedient ear.
Okay, so the first thing, right words at the right time are like what from verse 11? Yeah, apples of gold and pictures of silver. I mean, it's just beautiful. And I think that's the concept. And then it's especially true in what context? Verse 12. When you have to, remember, we're talking about the right content at the right time, especially when... Yeah, but what are you doing? I mean, it's important that the person receives it. Yeah, you're given a reproof. Yeah, make sure you reprove. If you have to confront somebody, make sure it's the right words at the right time. Okay, so that takes some prayer, takes some thinking through, and so that's being wise. So I wrote that. That's especially true in the context of reproving or correcting. Okay, and then make it with wisdom. In 27:9, I'll just read it. Ointment and perfume rejoice the heart, so doth the sweetness of a man's friend by hearty counsel. So I said, make some friendships that are heart to heart, okay? And it not only adds joy to life, but can provide guidance when most needed. That's the hearty counsel, something that's a little deeper than just, hey, how's the weather out there? You know, hey, the Seahawks won. You know, something like that. So what can happen to a person who is unwilling to gain insight from someone other than themselves? Okay, let me just read those two verses. Verse 11:14. So think about the question. What can happen to a person unwilling to gain insight from someone else? Where no counsel is, the people fall. But in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. 15:22. Without counsel, purposes are disappointed. But in the multitude of counselors, they are established. So what are two things can happen there? What's the first one in that first verse? The people what? Fall. So if you're not going to listen to anybody, you know what's going to happen. There's going to be times that you know whatever you're planning is going to fail. Okay. And then the second thing is a little bit different. Same line, but what's the next verse tell us? Your purposes will be what? Yeah. So there's frustrating, there's discouragement. However you want to look at that in that way. So at times, what must a faithful friend do? 27:6. Faithful are the wounds of a friend. What does a faithful friend sometimes do? Okay, sacrifice. Okay, but what do your friend? What do they receive? Sometimes from a faithful friend. Okay, but how is that love expressed here? Okay, and what does he call it? wounds. Sometimes a faithful friend who really loves you wounds you. He says things that are not very kind, but it's his motivation is not because he wants to hurt. It's motivation because he loves you and he wants you to be better. So faithful, they're true. That's the wounds of a friend. They mean something beyond just a moment. Anybody have a friend that said something that was not very nice, and after you started thinking about it, you go, yeah, boy, that's true. Anybody have that happen? Okay, many people. Yeah, faithful are the wounds of a friend. But the kisses of an enemy are deceit. So, on the other side, everyone that's speaking well of you, they may not have your best intentions in mind, okay, where the wounds of a friend can. So that's the caution. Be careful about someone who always flatters you. So rebuking a friend is never easy, but if responded to, what can happen to that relationship? 28:23, he that rebuketh a man afterwards shall find more favor than he that flattereth with the tongue. So rebuking a friend can make a long-term friendship better. I think that's what he's getting across. We're almost done, Chris. I'm going at it. Saying about people, if you can't say something nice about another, then it might be best to say nothing at all. We've all heard that. Gracious words, you can see that in 22:1. They come from the heart. Okay, the grace of his lips, the king shall be his friend. And I think it's he that loveth pureness of heart, for the grace of his lips. Okay, so there's an aspect that comes from a pure heart. And I think that's so important. In other words, your relationship with God affects how you communicate with other people. I think that's really, and that's true because of your purity of heart with God affects how you relate to others. And the truth spoken in love, in 4:15 of Ephesians. But how does a false witness speak about others? What does it say there? You don't have to read it. What does it tell us in 12:17? Deceit, okay? And so that comes back to some of those other verses as well. So let me just close. I put, that deceitfulness can be negative to destroy or positive to flatter you. Both of those are not helpful. So as we close, God wants to use you and your words to make an impact for him in this world. Be proper as you speak to others. Ask God to help you do it with grace. Do not start or spread gossip. It brings strife and divisions. Do not be part of the problem. Not sure what happened there. Okay, speak to others in wisdom so that your words edify and encourage. And then when you speak about others, be honest with love and not deceitful with animosity. Let's pray. Father, thank you for your goodness and grace. We pray you'd help us to be wise with our words and not foolish.